Respiratory HQ's Journey to Success podcast, the podcast specifically for RT students because you all are the future of the respiratory therapy profession, and not everything you need for success can be found in your textbooks. I'm Tanya Peel. I'm so excited to be here to give you a little guidance and insight, a few tips, maybe a few tricks to help you be successful on your journey through respiratory therapy school. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. If you've been following me for a while, I want to say welcome back. And if this is your first time listening to my podcast, Journey to Success, I hope you find it very beneficial. Chances are you're probably a respiratory therapy student in the middle of respiratory therapy school or just about to start. Well, this podcast is to help you prepare for your journey through respiratory therapy school. I want to tell you about some changes that have recently happened for me and Respiratory HQ that I'm super excited about, and then you'll understand the purpose of the next few series of this podcast. So, Joe Lewis, respiratory coach, and I have partnered together and created our own company called One Vision. And the purpose of One Vision is to partner with respiratory therapy schools to help educate future respiratory therapists. And what we're using is on-demand resources that are going to be embedded into respiratory therapy curriculum. So I'm super excited about that. And one of the components that I am working on are a series of lectures and podcasts that will help prepare students for the academic rigor of respiratory therapy school. But this information is too great to keep just to the students that are in respiratory therapy school that we've partnered with. I want to share it with anybody and everybody that is a respiratory therapy student. So this will be embedded in curriculum, but it will also be available online through all the podcast areas. So we're going to start talking about a survey that I did a few weeks ago. I surveyed program directors across the nation, and I surveyed students across the nation via social media. And one of the questions that I asked both groups, both program directors and students, were where do they feel like their students struggled the most, or students, where do you feel like you struggled the most during respiratory school? And a lot of times faculty and students don't necessarily agree on things, but it was really very interesting to me to hear that program directors perceive their students in struggling with critical thinking skills, study strategies, and time management. And when I asked that survey question to students, they gave me the same top three in that same exact order: critical thinking skills, study strategies, and time management. So both faculty and students agree that these three areas they feel are skills that are lacking that could help a student be successful in respiratory therapy school. So with this podcast, I am going to start kind of drilling down into those three areas to help you prepare for respiratory therapy school and using these skills. So today's podcast is all about time management, and actually we're going to call it the 3 P's of time management. We're going to drill it down to something very, very simple, but one of the things that you really are going to need to have right from the onset of school is a good understanding of where your time goes to. So we're going to talk about master planning, daily planning, basically the 3 P's. So the 3 P's of time management. Planning is number 1, prioritizing is number 2, and performing number 3. So let's get started. So our first step is planning. There's an old saying that goes, by failing to plan, you are planning to fail. Let's just say that again and let that sink in. By failing to plan, you are planning to fail. I can't tell you how many times students start in my respiratory therapy program, and if you ask them what their plan is for studying or for working or managing all of their time, some people don't have a plan. They're literally clueless about what's going to happen. They think it's just all going to work out. Okay? So, this adage, by failing to plan, you're planning to fail. Basically, if you don't have a plan from the onset, you are setting yourself up for failure. We don't want that to happen, right? You're excited about getting accepted into respiratory therapy school. You've already done a great deal of work. You've taken your prerequisite classes. You've gone through the application process. Sometimes this includes the interview. You've done a lot of work to get here into RT school. Now we got to make sure you get through it. Let's not fail from the onset. And how do we do that? We have to have a master plan, because RT school is very, very demanding. You thought A&P1 and A&P2 were hard? You haven't seen anything yet, okay? You're going to take 2 to 3 to maybe 4 classes a semester that have the same academic rigor as anatomy and physiology did. And you're going to be expected to keep up, okay? So demanding schedule. Your instructors are going to give you a lot of reading to do. They're going to lecture on a massive amount of content each day, which means you're going to take a lot of notes. You're going to do a lot of studying. You're going to be taking a lot of test and lecture. You're going to be spending a great deal of time in lab figuring out the manual dexterity to certain skills. You're going to be having competencies in lab. You're going to be performing clinicals at the hospitals where you're going to be learning how to take care of patients and performing competencies there. You're going to have to do onboarding to all of these clinical sites. Respiratory therapy school is a demanding schedule, so we've got to get your schedule set solid before you start. And so I do this with my students by using a master schedule, and I call it a week at a glance. I want them from the onset of the semester to put everything on this weekly calendar that they're responsible for, so they can see all of their time and where certain time is allotted. If you fail to do this, if you don't really have a clue of your schedule and what it looks like, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be unorganized. Your stress and anxiety is going to go through the roof. And we don't want to start out school in that mental, that mental place where we're super stressed and we're super anxious. So let's talk about this week at a glance. I'm going to actually put this in the podcast notes. So for those of you that are just listening to this podcast because you stumbled across it, you can download it and kind of take a look at it. If you're a student and this podcast is embedded in your curriculum, I'm going to provide that week in a glance, and I'm also going to do a video to show you how to use it. But let's just talk about this. When people talk about having a master schedule or a weekly schedule, that means they're putting everything on that schedule, right? And most people, when they think about putting their responsibilities on a schedule, they, as a student, you're talking about school and work and all your other obligations. But one thing that people don't think about, and the one thing that is skimped on the most, is sleep. So as we go through this week at a glance calendar, the very first thing I am going to ask you to put on this calendar is a sleep schedule. Okay? This is a proven scientific fact. Your brain needs sleep to be able to process new memories. Okay, you're studying, which means you're making new memories. And if you don't give your brain that sleep that it needs to process and make neural networks, you're actually decreasing your capacity to retain knowledge. So I've got also a couple of videos that I'm going to give you links to, little short 5-minute videos, so you can kind of see the science behind it in a very easy to understand manner. So here's one thing, I'm just going to say it again. We're going to set your sleep schedule right, because skimping on sleep makes it less likely for you to retain knowledge. We're going to schedule anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Ideally 7 to 8 hours if you can get it in. And we're going to do it on a schedule. You're going to have a bedtime. Okay, we're going to need to think about that. As parents, those of you that have kids, your kids have a bedtime. You put them to bed at a certain time, they get up at a certain time. You do that. Well, okay, so some of you may do that to get them out of your hair at a certain amount of time. But no, we really do that. We set kids on a schedule so that they have a routine to follow, so their body can get used to it, so they can get enough sleep to be prepared for the next day. You as a respiratory therapy student need to do that also, to set yourself up on a sleep schedule and try to maintain it as much as possible. You will perform better, you will feel better, and you will retain knowledge better. Other things that you need to put on this master schedule, and we will walk through it together. You need to put your school schedule. Every class that you have to attend goes on that schedule. Every lab that you have to attend goes on that schedule. Clinical rotations go on that schedule. Essentially, right now, from a faculty perspective, I will tell you, school is your job. And yes, I know you may wear different hats and have other jobs and other responsibilities, but you're in respiratory school, and that's one of your top priorities. So we're going to schedule school. All the school schedule is the second thing that we place on that master schedule. The third thing we're going to put on the master schedule is some personal time, self-care time, if that's what you want to call it. You are not going to be able to enroll in RT school, perform in RT school. Some of you have second jobs. Some of you have children to take care of. Some of you have obligations. We all have obligations to other relationships in our lives. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we are not going to be able to have the energy, the passion, the willpower to help take care of those other roles and take care of others. So one of the things that I am a big advocate of is giving yourself at least 30 minutes to an hour a day of whatever it takes for you to feel like you're replenishing and refilling your cup. For me, my sleep schedule is weird. Okay, so I go to bed at 8 o'clock at night because I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning during the week when I go to school. But from 4 to 4:30, that 30 minutes of time is my time. I like to sit in absolute silence. Sometimes I think about my day and how I'm going to plan it out. Other times I just let my brain do free thinking. I think about what I'm going to create. Sometimes I meditate. Sometimes I pray. But that 30 minutes in the morning is my time, things that I do for myself to get me energized and ready for the day. When I come home in the evening, I also have 30 minutes to an hour that I give myself to just decompress from the day. I'm an introverted person. I'm a quiet person. I'm a person that likes quiet, and I have to give myself quiet time to re-energize. And so when I come home from work, my husband knows that the first 30 minutes to an hour, we don't really talk about our days and have everything. I just need a little bit of silence. And usually for me, that's in a warm bath with a book. That's how I decompress for the day, and then I'm ready to fulfill my other obligations. So self-care is going to be something that we are going to plan in your schedule. And then the fourth thing is going to be, everything else. All your other obligations. Some of you have kids. Well, maybe your kids, we're rolling into baseball season, and maybe there are games and practice you have to get your kids to. Maybe they are participating in some extracurricular activity in school that you have obligations to get your kids here and there. You want to participate in those things. Well, those things need to go on the schedule. Some of you may have a job that you work because, you still have to pay the bills. Your work schedule needs to be placed on our master schedule. And really any other obligations that you have in your life that you feel are important, if we can get that on that weekly master schedule, we're going to do that. All right. So first thing we're going to work on, you'll have a copy of it. I'll work through it, is we're going to do a master schedule. And you need to do this master schedule at the beginning of every semester, because your school schedule is going to change at the beginning of every semester, so you see what you have to work on. All right, after we do a master schedule, we're still in the planning phase, the first P. You are then going to get a planner that is a weekly planner. so that you can see your entire week as far as the more finite details. Do you have a test on Monday, a lab competency on Tuesday? Do you have an assignment to turn in on Thursday? If you have a planner that you can write those things down, you're never going to miss a deadline. And I don't know how you want to do it. Everybody's a little bit different. My planner is electronic. I have everything's on one calendar synced across all my devices. It's on my work computer. It's on my home desktop computer. It's on my iPad. It's on my phone. It's on my laptop. I have too many electronic devices, it sounds like. But the point is, I don't usually miss deadlines. Very rarely do I miss anything because I'm hooked up and into that electronic weekly planner where I put everything. So some of you are going to probably want to work on planners. Some of you may do running to-do lists. I'm also a to-do list person, but somehow you're going to have to be able to track what's going on and what you have due throughout the week. All right. So that's our first step. We have to plan. Okay, the second P in time management is prioritizing. You are going to have to prioritize your daily to-do list. We all have a series of things that we have to do throughout the day within our schedule. And you have to be able to look at the things that you have to get done and prioritize them. All right. And so some people they don't do this. And so it adds to a lot of stress because they have a lot of things to get knocked off their to-do list. Their to-do list may be 10 things long. You don't necessarily have to start at the top of that list and work through it sequentially. You have to do the most critical actions first. Things that are important and urgent need to be done first. While some things that are not necessarily important and not urgent don't necessarily have to be done that day. They may just have to be done eventually. So looking at your schedule and being able to prioritize things. So I have a tendency to think about things as important and urgent. Those are the things that have to get off of my to-do list just as soon as I can. Then there are important things, but they're non-urgent. And that may be something that I don't have to have done for a couple or 3 or 4 days. Okay. So that doesn't have to stress me out because while it is important, it may not be pressing. Then we have things that are urgent, like that we think we have to get done, but they're unimportant. And a lot of those things that are urgent, but unimportant may be what we feel like people are placing on us. An example of this would be a person that needs something done right now and is making you feel like it's urgent for you. So there's a saying that goes for this too. One of my best friends sent it to me not too very long ago. It says, "Your procrastination does not mean my emergency." And that's a lot of times how we feel, that some people procrastinate and then they need something from us immediately because they procrastinate. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is an important thing for us to do at that time. And we have to be able to discern between those things that are urgent for some but maybe unimportant for us. And then, you'll have tasks that are not urgent, not important. They just need to get done on occasion. Like right now, I could clean out my email list. It needs to be done, but it's not critical. Nobody's suffering because I'm not cleaning out my inbox, but I really need to do that sometime soon. And then another thing to think about when we're prioritizing is wasted time. We get a lot of things not accomplished, or a lot of things go unaccomplished because we're wasting time in areas that we don't even realize it, like social media. How many times have you picked up and started looking at some kind of video on Instagram or TikTok, and then you scroll to the next one and you scroll to the next one, and then all of a sudden you've wasted 20 or 30 minutes and you've gotten nothing accomplished. That's 20 or 30 minutes that you could have been working on something that was important, something that was urgent, something that needed to be done. Oh, maybe it's study time that you could have been utilizing. So the thing is that we have to pay attention to time drains. Okay. And social media might be one of those time drains. So I will tell you the way I minimize that, because I'm just as bad as anybody else where this is concerned. But I turn off all my notifications on things. I turn off notifications on all my social media sites. The only thing that I allow to come through on notifications on my phone, text messages and calendar reminders. Everything else does not pull me away because there's a little red circle on my iPhone. I go to that with intent when I need to know or need to check up on something. So be careful with your social media and how much time that's taking away from you actually getting important and urgent things done. And the third P in time management that we're going to talk about is performing. And guys, this is all you. Your instructors cannot do this for you. All right? Respiratory school is a lot of work. And it's one thing for me to say that, but it's completely different for you to perform the work. All right? And it's really easy to say that we're going to perform the work and talk about it, but end up not doing it. You're going to work in respiratory school. Some of you are going to work harder than you ever knew you could. And if you don't want to put in the work that it takes to earn the grade, then RT may not be for you. Okay? Just know from the onset, you are going to have to perform. You are going to have to do the work. So when it comes down to doing the work, how do you do it? You have to concentrate on one task until it's 100% complete. So if you have a tendency to run around and start this and then start another project, and the next thing you know, you have 4 or 5 things going on, you're distracted and you're not using your time wisely in getting things complete. So concentrate on one thing at a time until you get it 100% complete. So for me, what that means is when I have something to do, I set a time interval for myself. And this is called Pomodoro technique, and we'll talk about that with study skills. But I set a timer for about 30 minutes, and I turn off my phone, I pull down my email, I eliminate every distraction I can, and I work consistently towards one project for 30 minutes at a time. Okay, and you can do this type of work cycle in series, and we'll talk about that. But when you study with intent or focus on a task with intent, you're much more likely to get it 100% complete. If you minimize your distraction during that work period, you don't have 4 or 5 other things that you're rotating through, and you have a higher likelihood of getting things accomplished. So be sure to be aware how you are performing. Try to minimize your distractions. That's going to increase your productivity. It'll increase your quality of your work and the quantity of work that you can actually perform. We will talk more about this performance when we talk about study techniques and critical thinking techniques. All right, so let's do a recap of this. The 3 P's of time management. Number 1, or the first P, is planning. You have to have a master schedule so you can see, you can visualize how the time during the week has to move. You're going to work in time compartments. When you have everything planned out, you can then plan time for your studying. The second P in time management is prioritizing. You have to prioritize your daily tasks. You have to get the important and urgent things done first. And the third P in time management is performing. You got to work at it. You're going to put work into it. You're going to need to be very diligent about staying focused and doing the work. And the way to do this is minimizing distractions, working with a certain period of time, and performing that one task or that one project until it is 100% complete. Okay, so that wraps up time management. I hope you found this beneficial. If you're listening to this and it's part of your curriculum in RT school, also check out the videos that I've put in there for the science behind sleep and retention of knowledge, and check out the video that I've put in there, and we will work through our week at a glance together. So hope this has helped, and we'll see each other soon.